Before we step into Ayrshire, before we stand by the Linn, we need to ask, why were the witch trials at all? Why were they? Because witches, as the courts described them, never really existed. No armies flying to Sabbaths in the night, but the fear of witches was real, and the fear always has a history. In the 1500s, Europe was on edge. The Catholic Church was breaking apart. Protestant reformers were rising, and each side accused the other of consorting with the devil. Scotland's Reformation of 1560 gave us the strict Kirk. Presbyterian, unbending ministers watched not only your church attendance, but your morals, your private life, your thoughts. Now imagine that world. Famine in the fields, plague in the towns, storms wrecking ships on the coast. When disaster struck, the church told people, look for sin, look for the devil's hand. And the easiest hand to point to was often a woman, old, widowed, poor, different, or skilled in herbs the pulpit did not approve. Then came the law. In 1563, the Scottish Parliament declared witchcraft a capital crime. Suspicion became a death sentence, and behind it stood a king, James VI, who also was James I. James believed witches had tried to sink his ship, the Storms. He became obsessed. He even wrote a book on demonology, spelling out how witches conspire with the devil, with the king himself hunting them. Local ministers needed no encouragement. The fuel, the flame, the fire. And who bore the weight? Women, about 85% of the accused. There was also men accused, but mainly women. Because women carried knowledge outside the pulpit's control, knowledge of healing, of birth, of old charms, older than the Reformation. Back in the day, the church would always have sought out the wise women, and that would have been in the form of an abbotess. So something now had completely broken and changed. So wise women had been around for a long time. And this was an opportunity to get rid of them. The trials were never really about witchcraft. They were about fear and about control. Control over women's voices, women's wisdom, and women's bodies. And so the fires burned, not because witches were real, but because the fear of them was useful. This is the world in which Ayrshire witches lived and died, and many of them did. In North Ayrshire alone, between 1649 and 1683, they say there was at least 85 women and 6 men accused. I'm sure these numbers are not reflective of the actual numbers. The charges: cursing neighbours, healing with herbs, midwifery prayers, speaking with spirits. The punishment: strangling and burning. The law wanted not just death, but erasure. But land remembers, water remembers. Which brings us to Ardrossan and the place called Witches' Linn. By day the Linn is green, mossy, alive, with bird call. By night it changes. People say a hoodie woman walks there, ringing a bell. No record ties a single witch to this spot, so far. The story is more likely to weave of Ayrshire's wider lore, especially the case of Bessie Dunlop Ayrshire. Bessie was a healer in the 1570s. She said her knowledge came from Tom Reed, a spirit, sometimes the ghost of a slain soldier, sometimes a ferryman. He guided her. Which herb, which charm, what time. In another age, she would have been honoured. In hers, it was enough to condemn. Tortured until she confessed, she admitted not to serving the devil, but to listening to Tom read. That was enough. She was strangled and burned in Edinburgh. He comes to me, Tom read, when the house is quiet. He says, "Take this root, steep it, lay it by the bedside." And I only ever healed. I only ever listened. Others followed Margaret Barclay of Irvine, accused of sinking a ship, tortured until she confessed. Dozens more, anonymous, forgotten, except by the land. And so we return to the Lynn, to the woman in the cloak, ringing her bell. Why a bell? In many traditions, bells are liminal. They mark thresholds, call spirits, cleanse space. To hear a bell in the Lynn is to hear a summons. I don't hear it as a haunting of terror. I hear it as a memory. Every ring, an unforgotten heartbeat. Every step up the Lynn, a step those women never finished. The bell says, don't forget. So if you go gently, stand in the mist, listen to the water. Remember that the past isn't gone. It runs like the burn, still speaking. And if you hear the bell, don't run. Listen the way Bessie listened.